Dan. Well, welcome everyone to the webinar today. It's nice to have everyone here. We're going to be talking about sick leave, vacation, and PTO today, and staying compliant when it comes to time off, paid time off, and unpaid time off in certain cases. So basically, there are three types of leave that I see. Sometimes sick leave and vacation are two separate things. I see that more often in a union shop to see sick leave and vacation as two separate things, and more common in the public sector. I would say the majority of employers I see have PTO. They may call it vacation, but employees can use it for anything: sick day, personal day, multi-day vacation. Um, Sometimes I see sick and vacation leave as unpaid leave, called a variety of things, but allow employees to call in sick or take a week off without violating the attendance policy, but does not provide wage replacement. So paid sick leave is required by law in some cities or states. Hopefully, if paid sick leave is required where you are operating, you are aware that there is a paid sick leave law. That means you have to track as employees accrue, which is generally an hour for every 30 or 40 hours worked, and track as they use paid sick leave. Most laws set a maximum cap on what an employee can accrue at one time. It's generally between 40 and 56 hours. Most paid sick leave laws require carryover, but then the employees can stop accruing when they hit that maximum cap. If you don't want to mess with accrual, you can front load that maximum cap at the beginning of each year. Some employers have a policy where their full-time employees are accruing PTO or vacation, and they just throw this paid sick leave into it, and their part-time employees just get the minimum amount of this. Some employers separate it out together, and all employees get this paid sick leave separately, and everyone else gets a different amount of vacation that can be used for things other than illness. Most employers don't want this to be separate because their PTO policy gives employees 40 hours a year, and if the maximum accrual cap under the law is 40 hours a year, they can give their employees 40 hours PTO at the beginning of the year and tell the employees they can use as many of the 40 hours as they want for illness, and then they're not out any more money. That is the paid sick leave requirement is included in their PTO policy. But if you put it all into one PTO bucket and include the sick leave, if the law requires carryover, you have to carry over all your PTO subject to the maximum accrual. Generally, the law doesn't require payout of this paid sick leave. That's required by law upon separation of employment. But if you're putting it all into one PTO bucket and the law in your state requires PTO bucket, PTO payout, you're going to have to pay out the whole thing. So you can give your employees a separate sick leave policy with the state minimum, and then give your employees less vacation if you're trying to keep time off down. In Nevada and Maine, you might as well include it in PTO, because in Nevada and Maine, you do have to allow accrued time off for any reason. Use it or lose it policies. Some employers don't want employees to rack up a lot of sick, vacation, or PTO because they're either in a state where they have to pay out on separation, or they are afraid of an employee asking for a 4-week vacation at once. So if they don't use it at the end of the year, it's gone. If you use an accrual system where employees start accruing in January and don't reach their full accrual amount until December 31st, it's not exactly fair, because there's no way they'll get to ever use the whole amount. If you're going to do use it or lose it, the most fair thing to do is to front load all the PTO at the beginning of the year. If you're in a paid sick leave jurisdiction, you're probably going to have to carry over that PTO. So if you're using PTO to cover everything, you're going to have to carry over that PTO as well. Some states allow use it or lose it, but they require that you give employees a reasonable opportunity to use their PTO. Again, that means no blackout dates, no turning down based on seniority. Employees have to be able to truly take a week off. So that's you do have to give a reasonable opportunity in use it or lose it states that require that. The maximum accrual cap is an alternative to use it or lose it, but that also prevents vacation and PTO hoarding. As we said, paid sick leave makes use of this, so you don't have to allow employees to accumulate, which is important because an employer with paid sick leave by law has to allow an employer to use that upon request. For vacation, it's a nice way to allow employees to save a little bit more for a trip or for baby bonding, if there's a birth or adoption of a child or a medical event that may be coming up without losing it all at the beginning of the year, letting them save up to that maximum accrual cap. But you don't have to let them go crazy on that. You can set a reasonable number. Vacation and PTO payout. Know your state. This is going to vary from state to state, and this is why you need to be in contact with an attorney, like the attorneys here at myHRcounsel. Why, if you need us to draft your handbook, what is in your handbook is going to make or break you as far as vacation and PTO payout on separation. So if you are a client of ours, your employee handbook is included in your subscription. You can open a ticket asking for us to draft your handbook today, as soon as the webinar is over. If you have a question about whether vacation or PTO is required to be paid out on separation in your state, we'd be happy to answer that for you. But you need to have an attorney draft your employee handbook today. If you do not have a 2023 attorney drafted handbook and you did not pay an employee all their PTO when they quit or terminated in a state that requires it, they could come back tomorrow and make a wage claim and sue you, and you'll be paying out that PTO plus punitive damages. You cannot wait one more day to have an attorney drafted handbook. Whether you pay out is dependent on state law, regardless of what you want in some states. But some states you pay out unless your handbook specifically says that you don't. So if you don't have that provision in your handbook specifically saying we don't pay out PTO or a vacation on separation, you're going to be paying that out. And so that's why handbooks are so important. And like I said, our best practices handbook is included with your Ask HR subscription. So there's no additional cost for us to draft your employee handbook. Please open a handbook ticket if you don't have a recent handbook. Exempt employees, you do have to pay an exempt employee for a full day if they perform any work in that day, but if they're gone for 2 hours, you can deduct 2 hours of PTO. You can deduct hours from an exempt employee's PTO bank for partial days of work. However, make sure these exempt employees know before you go ahead and do this. Put this in the handbook. Again, you have to have a handbook that's compliant. So you have to let them know in the handbook before you do this that this is what you are going to do. Unlimited PTO, open a ticket if you want to do this. If you try to do this on your own, you could end up paying a monster amount on separation, or you could end up having to pay an employee for a 2-year USERA leave and pay them for the entire leave. So it's best to get the help of an attorney if you want to do unlimited PTO. A more flexible, or more an appropriate name for unlimited PTO is flexible time off rather than calling it unlimited PTO. And there is a reason for that. But please don't try to do this yourself. Please let an attorney help you draft this, and definitely open a ticket. Or as Dan said, if you are not a current client of ours, please go to info@myHRcounsel.com or go to myHRcounsel.com and view our packages. Um, Drafting an unlimited PTO policy on your own is just a recipe for disaster. Using sick, vacation, PTO on protected leave. Some employers want employees to use up all their vacation or PTO when they're on FMLA or state family and medical leave laws. Um, some states allow the employer to require exempt or exhaust employer provided paid leave before going unpaid. Some states say the employee has to have a choice. So know when you can say in the handbook, employees may use PTO sick vacation, and when you can say must use PTO sick vacation, and put it in your handbook. Again, this is with FMLA. Whether you say may or must is going to make a difference. Going the red with PTO, my advice as an attorney is do not do this. Do not let employees go into the red on PTO. This is too easy to mess up and get a discrimination from an employee who says another employee was allowed to go further in the red, or you mess up your calculations and have an employee make a wage claim. If you find that if you're doing an accrual and you find, well, but employees want to take a week-long vacation in March and they haven't accrued anything yet, don't let them go into the red in PTO. Just front load your full amount of hours at the beginning of the year, and then they have enough to take vacation in March if they want to. And just front load, and when they're out of their front loaded time, then they go unpaid. Then that's their problem. But please don't go into the red or have negative PTO. You might not be able to get that back. PTO, vacation, sick leave donation policies. Again, this is another thing that I would say get an attorney's advice if you plan to do this. This is a program that some employers have, allowing employees to share their PTO, vacation, or sick leaves with employees who have emergencies to keep them from falling off payroll. Again, there are specifics about this where you would need to speak to an attorney to make sure that you are getting a policy that that is compliant. So if you are interested in doing this, I would say to speak to an attorney immediately, open up a ticket, um, and ask, do you have a policy? Do you have something that that you can provide for us as a policy? And we would provide that policy for all of our Ask HR clients. That documented would be included with your subscription. State and federal laws. So there is nothing in the Fair Labor Standards Act that requires employers to provide vacation and PTO. You don't have to provide vacation and PTO if you don't want to. And like I said, in some jurisdictions, you have to provide paid sick leave. But other than that, you don't have to provide vacation or PTO if you don't want to. There's nothing in the Fair Labor Standards Act that says you do. There's nothing that regulates how much you give. There is nothing that requires basing the amount you give on the length of service. There's nothing that requires to give all employees vacation or PTO. If you give one employee vacation or PTO, I mean, you want to be careful there because you want to avoid a discrimination claim. You don't want to uh, give one white employee a vacation and not give any of your employees of color vacation. Obviously, that's going to get you in trouble. Um, it does not allow employers to set different rules, vacation rules for different groups of employees. You can certainly have different rules for management, different rules for exempt and non-exempt employees, part-time and full-time employees. You can have different vacation rules for people in different departments. There's nothing in the law that says it has to be the same for everybody, and there's nothing in the law that tells employers when they must let employees use vacation or PTO, other than again with paid sick leave. When we're getting into the law on paid sick leave here, that's a little different about telling employers when they must let employees use paid sick leave. But as far as when you must let employees use vacation or PTO, there's nothing in the law that says if an employee comes to you and says they want to use it, you know, to take care of their sick mother and they don't qualify for FMLA and they want to use vacation time, you can still turn them down. If they don't qualify for any protected leave and they just want to use FMLA, or if they just want to use vacation and PTO, I mean, you can turn them down. There's nothing in the law that says you must let employees use vacation or PTO. So thank you. I apologize. We went a little over time here, but thank you, all of you, for participating in our presentation today. Like Dan said, you will get a copy of the deck and a recording of the webinar. If you have any questions, please open a ticket in our Ask an Attorney portal, or go to info@myhrcounsel.com, or visit myhrcounsel.com/packages if you are not already a client and would like more information about our packages and what we can offer you as a client. So thank you all for participating today, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.